Hi everyone, welcome. Folks are coming in the room and we're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute. Great, looks like we've got everybody in. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Welcome, and actually it's evening in Iceland time, so thank you all for joining us as well. My name is Allison Hurier and I head up the Textile Arts curriculum at Portland State University. For those of you who are joining us from outside the university today, the Textile Arts curriculum is an elective track in the BFA program that provides an interdisciplinary approach to the study of clothing and textiles. This is one of several free public events that we're hosting this term where we bring in outside perspectives to supplement our current course offerings. And today we are joined by the BFA project proposal class, where we're talking a lot about sort of professional development opportunities and residencies and all the things that Anne, Lyla, and Loo are going to be talking about today. So if you are interested in more of our events or want to kind of keep up to date on what we're doing, we welcome you to come and check out our website. I'll go ahead and share the screen right now and show that to you. This is where you can find out about all of our events, and I will put this link in the chat for folks. And you can also find out about our residency program, which Anne, Lyla, and Loo are our spring term residents, artists in residence. They'll be back with us in mid-May to do some work here at Portland State University, working in our spaces and with our students and throughout the latter part of the spring and the summer. So before we get started with our programming today, I wanted to just, I'd like to acknowledge that we are joining you from Portland State University, which is located near the heart of downtown Portland, Oregon in Multnomah County. We honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on, the Multnomah, Kathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of Chinook, the Tualatin Kaiapui, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It is important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and to recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. So today, I'm so thrilled to welcome Anne Greenwood Rioseco, Lyla Rowen, and Loo Bain. They are a collective of artists who share interests that converge at the intersection of weaving, placemaking, and how materials and crafts are embedded in history, landscape, and the natural world. They are joining us from the Icelandic Textile Center to discuss their current project, which uses naturally dyed materials and the TC2 loom to explore concepts of contraction and expansion. Anne, Lyla, and Loo, thank you so much for being with us today. Yay! So our format for today is going to maybe be a little bit different than a normal artist or a standard sort of artist talk. It's going to be a little bit more of an open kind of discussion. What I've asked Anne, Lyla, and Loo to do, just to kick us off, is to do a little presentation that shares with us just their work as individual artists, and then we'll get into what they're doing. And more of a discussion, a lively discussion format with their residency and their collaborative. So I am just going to encourage folks to use the chat or raise their hands if they've got questions as we go. We don't need to wait until the end. If you've got a question, please feel free to ask it and we'll address it as we go. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Anne. Anne, do you want to get us started and tell us about who you are and what you're working on?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Anne Greenwood and I'm from Portland. I grew up in North Dakota, but I'm living in Portland, Oregon now. I've lived there the last 30 years. Just going to show you a few images from a link from my most recent project. This is called Science Stories. So I'll take you to the first link, Allison. Yeah, this is a collaborative project. I was commissioned to work with the Puget Sound, University of Puget Sound, to have an exhibition of book arts in their gallery, the Collins Gallery. And each of the artists that were invited were paired with a scientist to explore just the relationship and I think the intersection of arts and sciences. So Allison, if you want to scroll down a little bit, this is a collaborative project with the scientist and a book artist and printer from Portland, Daniela Del Mar. I met with the scientist Lalita Calabria, who's a lichenologist at Evergreen University. We had several conversations over a period of months, and I was just wrapping up a project that Daniela had worked on with me previously. And so we, given that it was the pandemic and our pods were kind of simple, she and I moved on to work on this project together. She does letterpress printing and book design. And so she helped me conceptualize the design of this project and did all the printing. And I also commissioned a poet from Denver and another artist from Oregon, both of whom I met at prior artist residencies. So we'll get to this question later on, but I tend to meet a lot of really interesting collaborators when I go to artists residencies. So this is an example of relationships that I had made prior in residence. And then when this project came up, I contacted them, and one of them wrote a poem, and Leanne illustrated the lichens. Yeah, so this is it's called a flag book, and Lalita and I worked on discovering lichens that could also be used as natural dye materials. And so one of the lichens in the book, the wolf lichen, we used to make a natural dye for the ribbon on the book. And yeah, I'll let you guys kind of read through this on your own. There's a lot of information and a video that includes all the artists reading the different texts from the book, and yeah, just further information here about the size and the material and the book structure. This project was funded in part by the Regional Arts and Culture Council and the Oregon Arts Commission. So yeah, there's further links in here to all the different books that were created in this project and a little more conceptual information. Yeah, if you want to link to my website, yeah, I've got another spread of information here with different links on it too. If you want to scroll down a little bit further, there is a link to an animation that accompanies this project that I just want to make sure you know about. It's I don't want you to play it now. It's a little bit too long for the conversation, but it's a pretty interesting animation of the lichen images with some music that you might find interesting. So yeah, and if you want to scroll through my website anymore, you can see different projects and portfolio and contact information. I'm just going to touch on this project because our time is so limited, but yeah, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Cool. Hi, I'm Lou. I just decided to kind of share a few weavings and like one of the more recent projects I've been working on. We're all very multidisciplinary artists and we kind of come to textiles from different backgrounds. And so that's kind of one of the things that unified us. And we're like, hey, wait, you make all sorts of different things. And like, we're all interested, like, that was one of the things that we kind of clicked with. But I have worked in textile departments on and off for the last 10 years and had access to the TCT loom. And so in between semesters and things like that, I would be able to like kind of throw on a project or two. And so I've got on here a few of the weavings that I've done on the loom. My work is usually kind of informed by popular science and earth science kind of info. And so I've been kind of looking at a lot of early astronomy to kind of like create this particular, the panels that I love. So if you scroll down to the next one, yeah, if you want, yeah, there you go. Yeah, these are kind of inspired by an early astronomer, William Wright, I think is his name. I'm blanking on his name right now because I'm in a presentation, of course. But he did these incredible kind of carved panels where he did interpretations of what he thought stars were. And they were just kind of magical and charming. And so that was kind of what inspired this particular kind of series of panels that I wove. Let's see what's next. I'm not sure what order I kind of sent this is a more recent body of work that I'm still kind of processing. I did a residency at the Meadow Ranch Center, which is down in Sisters, Oregon. And I'd always wanted, the amazing thing with residencies is you can get really experimental and kind of dive into projects that you'd been thinking about, but had never really kind of had the time to invest in or experiment with. And so I had learned how to make bobbin lace, and I was really curious how those structures could be transferred if they became really large. And when I was enlarging these structures with like really large pieces of yarn, I was kind of looking at scientific infographics and kind of making these comparisons between like satellites and like how kind of scientists reimagine ways of taking abstract thoughts like black holes and things like that and putting them into like a form. So I was taking these kind of bobbin lace things and dipping them into porcelain and firing them. So I was making them dimensional and structural. And so this is one of the pieces, and I think there's a close-up where you can kind of see like the drips of the work. So if you go to the next slide. Let's see. Yeah, so it's kind of like a close-up. And again, it was really fun and interesting to work with this completely different material that I hadn't used before, kind of like textiles and ceramics. And they're very fragile and very precarious. And it was exciting to kind of work in this new medium because textiles is so forgiving and ceramics is so not forgiving. So it's like a really fun kind of marriage to have. But I'm still kind of going through working on this process. But I think I showed some other kind of, I included some other weavings on this slideshow. So I'm like, what else do I have on here? Oh, this is just another example of me kind of playing with textiles. This is a fishing net that I made or I constructed with old school fishing net processes. And was thinking about the same kind of infographics and space, and I called it the interweb just because that's what I feel like it looks like. But yeah, we can move on to the next one. What's the next one? Oh, the next one's Lyla.
Oh,
all right, there we go. Oh, there is one more. Okay, there's one more. Let's go back to that.
Is that one? Okay.
There we go. Yeah, so these are two other examples of kind of textile works that I've done. The one on the left is my first experience working on a kapu loom. And I was just kind of playing with twills. It was so satisfying to work on a loom where you could just kind of switch up the structure really quickly and kind of play with that. And so I was having way too much fun with those forms. And then the other one was just kind of playing with words, where I was looking at galaxies, and I had access to a large format printer and printed on some spandex, and then was stretching out the galaxy with the textile quite literally. But yeah, those are some of my kind of like fiber works that I thought I'd just kind of like show you guys, as far as getting into kind of what I've been working on recently and what I've done kind of with looms and fibers previously. But yeah, and on to Lyla.
Sweet. Hi, I'm Lyla. I'm from Reno, Nevada, and I moved to Portland to go to Portland State. I graduated in 2013 and still live in Portland. And here's some of the work that I've made in those years, I guess. So this is a piece called Between a Rock and a Hard Place. It was funny, I showed this recently to a group of Icelanders and they weren't familiar with that phrase, but I'm sure you guys all are. So it is a ceramic figure that I sculpted, and then a rock that I found, and a canary wood piece that's a hardwood that I had a carpenter, a friend of mine, help me with. If you go to the next slide, you can see it has that wood joinery that I was really happy with, having the intersection of the wood and the rock. And then I felt like the finger joints kind of invoked a compression that was really successful. And on to the next slide. This is a book that I actually made at a book arts class in PSU. I forget what it was, but it was some like clear transparency paper that I just had to experiment with so many different papers and so many different markers to get something that fit or that stayed. And the book cover was out of an old dress. And on to the next slide. This is some kind of like my entry. I worked at this place called Portland Garment Factory for a few years, which was kind of how I got into textiles. And apart from just sewing things with my grandma as a kid. But then I met Anne and she introduced me to natural dyeing, and I got really into shibori and did these pieces with different natural dyes, which was a lot of fun. And then on to the next slide. This is the bounty of yarn that I dyed with the help of Lou and Anne for our project here, and just was really excited by the rainbow that I got of colors from bugs and plants, and it's just a really magical process. And I'm sure the natural dyes are, the blue is indigo, the purple is indigo and cochineal, the green is indigo and osage. That little bit of brown is a mushroom, Dyer's polypore, that a friend found for me in Columbia Park. And the pink is cochineal, the yellow is osage, the magenta and red are cochineal, and the orange is madder. And if you're interested in those natural dyes, I would recommend this woman that Anne introduced me to, Cheryl Collender at Aurora Silks. She is she claims to be the master natural dyer in the world, and I believe her that she is. She has an insane wealth of knowledge and has all the materials to buy and does workshops as well. Yeah, and I think that's it for this portion of the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, it's so exciting to just kind of hear you all speak individually about your practices and kind of get a sense of, yeah, just like the different kinds of processes and also subject matters that you are interested in. And there's already like a lot of love coming in. I don't know if you all can see it on the chat from people who are interested in various things. That Katie was commenting about the flag book and that it looks so delicate and loved. It reminds Katie of the historical letters AFAB people used to send each other back in the day. Also, the juxtaposition between history, science, and astronomy and Loo's work was really cool. Lots of love for the textures and the natural dyes, Loo, for yours, and the palettes. So, thank you so much for sharing that. I think what I'd love to just chat about next is just especially because you all are coming at textiles from really different places. Can you talk a little bit about how you all met and like what prompted you to work together? And yeah.
You want to take this one, Lyla?
Sure. So when I was working at the Portland Garment Factory, Anne was an artist in residence there, and we really bonded talking about astrology, among other things like colors and patterns and fabric. And we had a really fun time working together there. And then we kind of just continued working after that in this mentor-mentee relationship, which has been really amazing. And we had an idea to come out here to the Icelandic Textile Center. I'm trying to make this short. And we were at a textile mending weekend at this place called Playa that's in Summer Lake, that is also a really amazing art residency, where we met Loo. And we were just there for a weekend mending thing. It wasn't a whole residency, but Anne and I were interested in learning about the TC2 loom, and Loo worked as a TC2 loom operator, and Anne just immediately was like, you should come to Iceland with us and we should do this residency. And I'm so glad that she did, because yeah.
It was love at first sight.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Truly. Yeah.
And so, yeah, what are you all doing? Can you just tell us a little bit about the residency and what you all are doing in Iceland, how that came about and how that proposal went?
Yeah, so I had been to this residency prior in 2018, and I came with just, an assortment of textile projects, and I had gotten a grant to do that. And you will find once you start writing grants that they like you to have kind of a whole agenda for yourself. And so in the process of writing that grant, I reached out to some artists in Reykjavik to see if we couldn't connect and just look at each other's work and do some studio visits. And so, yeah, part of when I came here, originally my interest was in connecting with international artists, and the approach to fibers and textiles work in Europe, I find to be very different than the United States. So I wanted to explore book arts and textiles work in this area. And so what came out of that was an exhibit here at the Textiles Museum, which is right next door to the residency. So that exhibit just wrapped up. The three of us helped deinstall that exhibit, and it was an international exhibit of book arts based on textiles. And so my plan was to come here for that exhibit, but with the pandemic, everything has been postponed. So 2 years later, we're here, and the timing of all of that just really changed my focus of what I wanted to do, and meeting these two other artists gave me a new direction to go in. And so, yeah, we all just kind of converged at that. And
yeah, it was
Yeah.
inspiring. So Anne was like, had already been to this residency and had kind of we approached the residency and when she was like, is it cool if we kind of readjust this and we have more different people, and is the loom available? Like, we'd like to use the loom. And she was awesome in the sense where she was like, we should apply for grants. And so it kind of lit a fire under Lyla and I to go ahead and suss out some grants. And both of us applied for grants and got money to come out here. And so it was a real kind of like inspiration to do some research and find some funding, which was really awesome.
And can you tell us a little bit more about like, what is the project that you all are working on together as a collaboration?
We're still sorting that out.
yeah, I mean, we all, we find that we definitely have some intersections in common, like we're all interested in textiles, we're all interested in color, we're all interested in the natural world. And so, part of our plan here is to, each work on individual work, but also make some collaborative work that we design together and weave together. And so, yeah, we have a pile of textiles that we've already made. And so, I'm kind of continuing on with, my interest in symbiotic species in the natural world. And I think those are topics that are interesting to both Lyla and Lou, just given their interest in the natural world too. So yeah, our ideas are all just sort of converging in the landscape and the natural world. Yeah.
Yeah, we took 8 days before the residency started to kind of travel around Iceland. And we all had these kind of ideas and plans of what we wanted to kind of like work on, or themes we wanted to talk about. And our work has all kind of been in conversation in like very different ways, which has been really interesting and fun to kind of see how we're all experiencing the same landscape. Because Anne's like taking pictures of like these teeny little things on the rocks, and Lyla's out there like snapping photographs of like the ocean moving, and I'm like just taking swaths of like it's just really interesting seeing how we've been interpreting these landscapes. And then yeah, so we kind of got here with plans, and then we were like, whoa, we've been restructuring, just because it's so hard not to be inspired while you're here and have that really like affect and inform what we're doing. Yeah.
The collaborative piece that we started working on is like some rocks that is like imagery taken from like rocks strewn across the beach going into the water, and then going into these beautiful patterns of on the mountains. The way that the snow melts here on the mountains just creates these beautiful like striations kind of that are really beautiful. And so we're making pattern with that, and then maybe transitioning into like this abstracted sky with hand-drawn elements in it. But we can show you some of the things that we've made while we've been here. So yeah, should we go?
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's see it. Yeah, and I think for some folks in here might, especially in the BFA class, not everybody might be super familiar. We just at PSU got our TC2 set up like literally last week, I think, is when they first started working on it. So it's very new to a lot of our students. So yeah, anything you all want to also just kind of maybe tell us about that as a tool would be helpful as well. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll show you the work, and then we'll sit back down and talk a little bit about the process.
That sounds great. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We're showing things kind of in order.
Mhm.
We've got, you want to grab this guy? Textile number
Maybe we should hold it
1.
close.
Yeah, should we get a little closer?
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about in coming here, Lyla and I have don't have very much experience with the loom. I've never woven before. Lyla has done some. But I wanted to start small with little panels, just thinking that some of this might translate into a book arts project. This is the back side, and we showed you the front side. We're using the natural dyed materials on a black warp. So this was the
Very first.
very first, and these are photographic images that we're translating into digital files. This is our second piece.
This is
This,
actually like the 5th piece.
Yeah, it's still a little later, but that's okay.
okay. Yeah, so this is, yeah, 3 panels, also natural dyed, the madder and the indigo. This is the front side.
Do the back.
Yeah.
And this is the back side, and these are photographic images too.
This is the water washing up on the beach.
Then this whack noodle.
And this is a third piece.
I feel like
This
you can
is,
see it better closer.
this is a
Is it better
4.
closer or further away?
Honestly, it's good always. I mean, I think actually it's great to see it in like as a big thing, but also, yeah, the details, even though they're getting a little bit faded, it's nice to just like when you can see that just the thread work is really great, because I think it's just hard to understand sometimes that these things are actually woven cloths and not something that's printed. I think we're just so used to seeing printed textiles these days that this is all
Yeah.
like imagery that's woven in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is a 4-color weaving. There's a little bit of natural dye, but then there's some synthetic dyes in there too. This is the back side. And you can get a pretty good idea of the scale, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah, this is a bigger piece.
It's a cotton warp, right?
Mhm.
It's a cotton warp with a mix of wool, silk, and cotton natural dyes. I'm just responding to the question.
Oh, thank you.
How they take a while because we're new. Lose faster than we are, and we're getting faster. They're
Yeah.
doing great, but
Yeah.
it takes about a day per yard, like a
Yeah.
day of work,
Yeah,
not a full 24 hours. You know what I mean?
yeah. And this is the next piece. This is also photographic images. And this is a 3-color weaving, all natural dyes with the black warp. Yeah, this is the back side here. And see, this is what we're learning as new weavers too, you know, like most of the color is on the back on this one. And, you know, we'll get into talking a little bit more about the designing process and the loom itself, but there's just a lot of intricacies in terms of laying out the files. There's weave structures and, you know, a lot of contrast. Here's another weaving. This is a front side, 2-color weaving, front and back.
This is the same as the blue and orange, but this one I did first. And yeah, I was surprised how much black there was, and then
Yeah.
tried it again.
Mhm. Here's another weaving. It's partly a photographic image, and then there's you know, an ombre of different naturally dyed pinks and reds and oranges and purples. This is the front side, and here we're using one of the or no, this isn't one of the local, this is just a thicker wool as opposed to the silk and the other materials. Yeah.
How into it you're getting.
Getting some macro.
Yeah.
Oh my
Here-
goodness, you all have been so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And here's another one. This is the front side. This is photographic
This one looks good
images.
so far.
I think this is 3-color, and it has some of the local wool woven into it.
Wow, that looks great from, look at that.
Yeah.
We're just like, ooh, what?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have been, I mean, it probably took us 3 days to just get the loom warped, pretty much. That is a pretty intense project. You know, it's, if you take a look at the TC2 on campus, you'll see what a beast that machine is. And it requires what, like over 1,000,
1,320
1,320
threads.
threads, all very intricately laced through the machine. And so what, it's like a yard in width.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then we put a 20-yard warp on the loom, which is insane, you know? So hopefully we'll get all of that woven.
We're gonna get through all of that work.
Yeah.
So we do have a question from Francie. How are you translating these photographic images into weaving, and is there a digital pattern that you make from the image? So that might be a little bit of explaining how the loom works to a certain extent, and
Sure.
and also what makes it maybe different than other looms. So
Yeah. So this is kind of like it's a jacquard loom, but it's a more condensed kind of user-friendly jacquard loom, in the sense that there are programs that people can use to design textiles, but the way that we're kind of working with it and the way that most kind of universities and things work with it is through Photoshop. And so you can take images through Photoshop, and if you think of it as kind of like a paint by number, you can choose your colors. Like you can say, I'm gonna use 4 colors, and within those 4 colors, you can blend those colors. So that adds more colors that you can work with when you're just kind of blending 2 colors together. And if you work with satins, you're blending the warp into those colors. So you're basically able to do shades of those colors. So it kind of gets exponentially more as far as how many colors you can use with the loom. And so essentially you break up images into layers by color, and then you assign each color a particular weave structure. And weave structures are a whole different thing that we can kind of go down and talk about if you're interested in getting into the specifics. But essentially, you put those weave structures on top of it, and it's very basic. It's just pixels, and black is the warp and white is the weft. And it looks insane, but you put those weave structures on top, and it looks like a crazy bitmap, essentially, that the loom reads and lifts the appropriate threads. So you can just hit a pedal and keep the same sequence of colors going back and forth, all 4 each way, or however many colors you're using. And you get these awesome woven images. It's amazing.
It is. I feel like I have not actually used the TC2 loom before, but I just remember I am not weaving has always been more of an extracurricular thing that I've done, but it is such it's magical for those students who haven't actually tried it yet. When you start to understand how all of the patterns, and then in this case, images, are actually formed through just this simple act of like raising and lowering different harnesses and whatnot. It's really exciting. You just are doing this like very meditative action, and then things are happening, like images are forming or patterns are forming right before your eyes. So I'm curious, because Anne and Lyla, you were saying that you had you all not woven before, or you hadn't used a TC2 before? Can you remind me?
Yeah, I have never woven. It was one of those things I put on my list as a textile artist that I would never do, because it was such a big thing, you know? No, I'm not going to do that. And I'm doing it, you know, now I'm a weaver, I guess. I can say it. I'm out.
Lyla, I'm not sure what your relationship was prior.
I was I became interested in the TC2 through Anne and Lou in this project. And so I took a class through Praxis on using the TC2 and was just like, what the heck is a weave structure? I have no idea what I'm doing. This is so confusing. And so then I got a single heddle Ashford loom, which is like a super basic beginner loom, and where you just do a tabby weave, which is just 1 over 1 under. And that was extremely helpful to just learn the basics, and it is really user friendly, but I would say knowing what weave structures are is very helpful to operate the TC2, because it does get, as anybody, I don't know, weaving is really complicated, but also it isn't. It's just something that you have to like know something about in order to, it has all this like terminology, and it's really fascinating. And I think that it's something that anybody can do if they are interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking, just because, you know, especially in looking at like both of your practices, just the images that you were showing, and that they are like really like, how is this, I'm curious if this like getting to know this process is, I don't know, just informed what you're doing at all, or like inspired other kinds of things that you want to do when you're done with this residency. I was curious about that. And then vice versa for Lou, I know you've been really embedded in the TC2 for quite some time, and this I think I would love to hear just a little bit more about you all as a collaborative, and how that kind of like this sort of shared knowledge of process, or shared knowledge of subject matter starts to inform each other's practices, or influence your individual practices. So.
Yeah, I think that information is just kind of bubbling to the surface for us right now, being so in process with the work and each other. I know for myself today, I just kind of feel like I had an epiphany with weaving, where I've just been, you know, really, I don't really even know Photoshop. I'm just kind of that far
amazing
behind the times, but I am a fast learner. I feel like I do pick things up. And I have worked interdisciplinary for most of my practice career too. So it's one of the things that is part of my practice is, you know, working interdisciplinary and working collaboratively. So it's a really important part of my practice. It's how I learn, is from working with other people rather than taking classes. So I feel like we each really have different skill sets that we're bringing to this that are really kind of changing, I think, the way we work individually. And, you know, we've been meeting kind of every, you know, we met Lou and I, or Lyla and I met Lou in June. And then in September, we started meeting on a monthly basis, or on a weekly basis, kind of plowing through all of the preparations for working on our project and getting to know each other and writing the grants. And so I think, at least for myself, you know, I know seeing the weavings that each Lyla and Lou are making are educating me on what can be done, you know, so I'm super influenced by both of their processes and what they're making, and just starting to learn kind of, you know, how different weave structures create different shapes and different lines and different textures in the weavings. And yeah, I mean, I can see for myself, you know, like, since I work with a lot of natural dyes, that feels kind of like a thread that's running through my practice, and the colors are running through my practice. And just in terms of some of the subject matter I've been working with, you know, science and you know, the natural world, the lichen project that I just finished. You know, we were just sitting down with these Icelandic women over the weekend, and they were telling us what lichen means in Icelandic, and it means to braid or to weave, you know? So I just feel like I'm learning stuff all the time, and it's just kind of, yeah, I'm finding these threads. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love working with people and helping people get project like that. I thrive kind of in that environment, helping people make things. It's exciting and fulfilling, kind of seeing these two. And we've been meeting and we've been kind of talking about stuff. I was like, you guys, this loom is insane. Like, it's a lot of Photoshop. It's a lot of computer work. And they're like, right, we know. And then we got here and they're like, this loom is insane. And I was like, I know. And so like, but it's been really fun, the process of like getting the warp on and then just seeing the stuff and like seeing it click with these two has been really exciting for me, just to see the progress from like the very beginning to now. And it's just been 2 weeks. I'm like, by the end of the residency, by the end, they're gonna be like, we got this. And then we're gonna go home. But it's been really exciting. And it's been cool to see what they've been inspired by too, just because I was talking to Lyla early, like none of us are really weavers. Like I've woven before and I have a loom and I've worked on the TC2, but my practice isn't primarily weaving. And so I feel like weavers kind of approach the loom kind of differently than people that don't know those kind of histories. And Lila's been really interested and invested. She's like, I want to try different weave structures. Like, I want to focus on that. And like, Anne's like, I love the blend of like the natural Lobi fibers over like the cotton fibers. And so it's just really fun to see what people are kind of like sussing out from these projects and how they're getting inspired, which has been really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be my last time with the TC2 or my last time weaving. I feel a little hooked now.
I mean, I'm curious because like, does it impact we were looking at I'm assuming those are all images that you all have been taking in Iceland, and then you're like working those onto a 36-inch wide, essentially like canvas to a certain extent that you're weaving. Has just like the knowledge of the loom and the fibers and things like that, like, I don't know, I'm just curious about how the weaving now, how you think about the image making, I guess, and the photographic sort of process of it, if any of that has been affected by the loom.
Yeah, definitely still kind of figuring that out and playing around with, for me, realizing that simpler is better to start out with and trying to find images that don't have a lot of complexity to them, and then adding complexity with color and weave structure has kind of been my takeaway and approach. And then I'm sure if I continue doing this for years and years, I can do more complex images, but it was a little frustrating to, try to render a human face or something is just pretty challenging to do. Whereas doing like a black and white image is just a lot easier to play with and not get frustrated and kind of be able to play with the color and the structure.
It's been like the process for people that don't weave, it's really abstract and kind of bizarre because you plan and you do all the math and you make sure everything is kind of set, but you still never really know how it's going to come out on the loom because your thread could be thicker, than you've used before. And you could be really excited. So you're like beating the loom harder today than you were yesterday. And so it's compacting the threads differently. And you only really see probably like 12 inches at a time. And so you can't tell how big it is as you're weaving, or like how these colors up here are blending with the colors that are now on the, so it's this very kind of, it can be really exciting when you take it off when you unwind all that stuff that you wove, and you can be like, wow, that's way cooler than I expected, or like the back looks really fascinating. And other times you're like, oh man, that is not the color combo that I thought it was going to be. So it's this kind of like managing your expectations. It's like you don't really know what you're gonna get sometimes, even though you've planned and you know what you're gonna get. So it's both really exciting and really frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, my undergraduate degree was in photography, so I keep calling it printing. I get kind of confused that I'm actually weaving because I call it printing, but we are taking some photographs of the landscape here and using those, but we're also taking images from the internet, and we're also drawing things on our iPads. And I brought images from Portland that I wanted to experiment with too. So we're kind of all over the map with our images. Yeah.
Exciting. It sounds really like such a, like that you all are able to really just go wild with it right now. So that's exciting. Annan was curious if you all have a TC2 technical assistant there, or are you having to figure it all out on your own? Lose the TC2
I've done
technical
that
assistant.
before. But there is a manager here. She's really great, and the studio is wonderful in the sense that they just gave us a key to the studio, so we can come in and work until there's apartments above us. So we stop generally 10 or 11, but we can kind of work as whenever we want. It's Easter now, or what? Obviously, it was Easter this past weekend, and Iceland has a very long extended Easter situation. So we haven't seen her for 4 days or 5 days. We've been kind of going rogue in the studio, which has been really fun. But like, she is available, and you can text her if there's any issues. Here you can also, if you don't want to warp and you want to do the residency by yourself, I think for a fee, they'll warp the loom for you. But we brought our own warp and warped our loom up ourselves. But there is a technician available to help.
And we're also, the residency itself, there is, it's an old women's college, located right on the edge of the North Atlantic Sea. It's one of the most beautiful sites I've ever been in. And the third floor of the residency building is kind of the dormitory and the kitchen and the bathroom. And then there's a big shared studio there. One of the rooms has a studio if you want to work more privately. Then the second floor is offices, and there's a great big community tapestry project that's been underway here for years. And then the first floor and the basement are more, the community also uses the space. Home ec classes are taught there at the local school. And then this new textiles lab is just, maybe a 2-minute walk from the residency. And it's a newer facility, just opened in the last year, and there's digital embroidery, there's a great big felting loom, there's a CNC cutter,
A laser cutter.
There's all sorts of sort of textile fab lab style equipment. And then there's also these 2 houses that are part of the residency, but for collaborative teams that want to come and work together. So we're staying in one of the houses. Yeah.
Helen was asking, are there any health precautions? A longtime weaver friend had at some point serious lung issues from inhaling floating fibers. Is that something that you all, or I guess Lou, since you're the one that weaves maybe a little bit more, is that something you deal with?
We have been vacuuming kind of the TC2 every night because it does create quite a bit of dust. And when we were warping the loom, we were joking, it was like peach fuzz kind of on our skin because it's you're kind of teasing out all these fibers. So it is, when you're doing something that large, a good idea to kind of protect yourself. But because we don't work on the loom as frequently, we haven't really been worried about that kind of stuff quite as much. But if you are weaving on a regular basis, it might be a good idea to mask up if you're concerned, if you have respiratory concerns, especially during a pandemic.
It's just a
So-
good idea to mask up anywhere. in the
Exactly,
States.
Anytime,
Yeah. Great. Well, I will link. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, especially students if you've got, oh, I see George has one, but especially like for students, I know we're going to be talking about residencies and collaborative practice later. So anything you want to ask about that. George, did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry. I was just curious because you mentioned you were working with local wool yarn. Are you in in communication with any like local weavers, or are you employing local weaving techniques or styles in your projects?
We actually it's insane here. You can buy beautiful yarn at the grocery store. Like that's how prevalent textiles are here. Everywhere you go, there's knitting needles, and it's taught actually in elementary school. Kids are taught how to knit. So it's so embedded in their world. And so when we were weaving, we were like, we have to buy some lopi. Lopi is local fleece that is kind of made into an unspun, Anne's gonna bring some over, an unspun kind of really long, I'm blanking on what to call it, but
It's unspun roving.
yes, roving, there you go.
And so we're working with that, which is Iceland has a really big knitting culture, as Lou was saying, like literally everyone knits here. The children learn how to knit in
So this is
school,
Lopi.
and you can buy this in the grocery store, in the coffee shop, like most places that sell stuff sell this, which is really amazing. But we have not, there's a textile museum here that has a lot of beautiful traditional Icelandic textiles, and they do have some weavings, but because we're working on the TC2, we're focused on satins and jacquard weave structures. So we're working with the local material, and yeah.
And then this is the material. I was looking for a description of these, I guess are called plates. We're just kind of learning about this, but yeah, it's unspun wool. And in the town here, there's all the wool is processed in this town that we're in. There's a wool washery here, and there's seasons to when they shear the lambs, and we're going to be going out to a local lamb farm. The artist that heads up the textile or the tapestry project here is she's an avid knitter, and heads up the knitting festival that happens here every summer. And she's also a farmer with her son, and they have, I don't know how many sheep. I was out there last time I was here, but it's lambing season, so we'll start seeing lambs being born this month and next month. Yeah.
A lot of sheep.
A lot of sheep.
And horses. It's so pretty here.
I think maybe the last question we'll take is just Carolyn's question. What has been the most unexpected part about your experience so far?
We're all like, ooh.
I don't know. I think not to be like insanely positive, but we have gotten along really well, which has been really awesome. We all kind of have this like what we've been calling like grandma energy, where we all like to cook and we all like to, do textiles work, obviously. So that's been really great. We've been able to like find a balance of working and also exploring, which has been really good. I don't know, I didn't really know how I was going to take to the TC2, but I am really stoked on it. And the first week we were here and learning it, I just was like really inspired and was having these weird like TC2 dreams that were really awesome. And so also really positive. That was cool. Yeah, what else was unexpected?
Well-
Oh, it's really hot in Iceland because they have
Yes.
geothermal heat here. So the heat is inexpensive. So all the indoor spaces are like pretty blasted with heat.
You crack windows. You sleep with your window cracked when it's like 30 degrees out because that's just what you do.
Well, and I think the most unexpected thing I experienced is pools are also a really big deal here because geothermal energy is what they use. And so they're all outdoor pools. And so first week we were here, we were at the pool and there was a blizzard and it was outside and I was swimming outside in a pool in a blizzard. And it was like amazing. It was heaven.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. And there's
Yeah.
just like everyday surprising things that like the water is really interesting because it also from the tap is geothermic, so it's very sulfuric. So your showers, you're like showering, you're like, I feel clean, but I smell weird. You know, like it's a weird experience. But you know, I feel like it's been really kind of cheesy, but magical to like, and really, I don't know, it's been so smooth and so kind of like we've had one hiccup in the 3 weeks that we worked together, which is miraculous for 3 people from different places who literally met and we're like, we've been meeting once a week, but we met, you know, in July and we're like, let's go to a foreign country together. We'll see how that works, you know, like, and it's, who does that? But we did it and it's been amazing. It's really been amazing.
Well, I know it's very late there, so thank you all for joining us today and sharing about your experience with this residency. I feel like I know when I was in school, I didn't even know that residencies were a thing, and I think that like obviously, as you all have just been describing, it's just they in my experience, they're just like such wonderful ways to kind of break with your experience and possibly like use either if it's through learning a new skill or working with other people. It's a really nice way to like just engage your practice maybe in a different way that you are able to in sort of a more routine setting when you're at home. And so thank you so much for sharing all of the things that you're doing. I'm hoping, as I mentioned before, Anne and Lyla and Loo are going to be joining us beginning in mid-May to be working on their work here as textile artists in residence at Portland State. And so hopefully we will get a chance to see some of these weaving creations up close and engage with you all we just look forward to engaging with you all further when you get back. So, but we thank you today for like taking time out of your magical experience. So, I know for my class, we'll be engaging, like we'll be connecting again at 3:15 on our regular class link. But before we end, I just want to thank Anne, Lyla, and Loo for taking the time to join us today or this evening for you all. And I'd love to thank everyone who attended. We will be, this has been recorded and we will make this available on our event archive later this week. And I'll put that link in the chat right now. We hope that you will consider joining us for our first kind of in-person live event that we're going to be doing on May 14th, the Shishiko Mending Workshop. It's going to be in conjunction with the Portland State Sustainability Center. And yeah, we'll do some Shishiko mending. So that's going to be led by actually a Portland State alum, Gigi Woolery, and current grad student, Mai Ide. So cool. So thank you. Good night, you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone who came today. There's lots of love coming into the chat. And we will see you in a couple weeks. Bye.